Many thanks to our sponsors who make this festival possible. A good goodbye. Funeral planning for those who don't plan to die. Bernalillo County and the Indigent Program, the Better Place Forests Organization, Bosque Trails Hospice, Conscious Crossroads End of Life Services, Death Doula Professionals, End of Life Options New Mexico, French Funerals and Cremations, Keeper Memorials, thank you for handling the Zoom on this whole festival, and Passages International. We have Karla with French Funerals and Cremations, and French is one of my longtime supporters of my work, and I'm truly grateful for that support, and I am so glad for her to be able to share her wisdom with you on this day where we've been talking about unexpected deaths.
Thank you, Gail. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to sit through your presentation. Boy, that was tough to watch. That role play felt very real to me, didn't it, to the rest of you?
Yeah.
Well, I've been with French now 10 years. I actually flunked retirement twice. I'm not very good at this retirement thing, but I keep trying. So anyway, and what I do is I help people pre-plan their funerals. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, and giving that family peace of mind, because pre-planning truly is a wonderful gift. And I know Gail has had this experience and is a big fan of pre-planning. We always like to start off with a little trivia. I'm usually doing this at 8 o'clock in the morning where people are half asleep. So who holds the record for the world's most expensive funeral? John F. Kennedy, Alexander the Great, King John II, or Ronald Reagan?
Alexander the Great.
King John. Well, some good guesses, but you're right, Alexander the Great. It was a $600 million funeral, followed by with a solid gold carriage and 60 horses. It was pretty amazing. Who holds the record? What realistic 70s sitcom aired a bittersweet episode in the season finale in 74-75 season in which one of the best loved members of the ensemble cast died?
Lost.
In a plane crash, and was hence buried at sea. The choices are On the Family, Happy Days, MASH, or Cheers? MASH. I've never had anyone get that wrong. Very good. And the next, what celebrity saw their funeral tickets scalped for more than $10,000? Elvis, Prince, John Lennon, or Michael Jackson? I don't care. It was Michael Jackson. His funeral was watched by 3 billion people. And it was like a rock concert, the people that were performing. It didn't really feel like a funeral. And this is the last trivia. For a veteran service, how many stars should be visible on a properly folded flag? The choices are 12, 8, 6, or 4.
8.
8? 4? 4 is correct. And it's the different branches of the military. They left out the Coast Guard. Okay, now let's get into the presentation. This is why I do what I do. That's my parents and my husband. We believe every life is unique and worthy of honor and respect. And I really enjoy going throughout the community and presenting the benefits of pre-planning. I've been doing this, like I said, 10 years. And I had the experience with my dad where we did not pre-plan. And it was a really tough day to go in the day after he passed away and sit there for what felt like for hours, and then have to go home and get different paperwork and then come back. And had we pre-planned, all of that would have been done. With my mother, we got forced into pre-planning because she had to go on Medicaid. And I don't know how much y'all know about Medicaid, but with Medicaid, you can't have over $2,000 in assets. And so we got forced into pre-planning. Mom had been in a nursing home already. And then she outlived her money. So we had to keep her in there, and we got forced into pre-planning. And what a gift it was. We had no idea that pre-planning 3 years before she died was going to make it so much easier than it was with Dad. And then, of course, my husband, I did his pre-planning for him. He didn't want to do it. He kept putting it off and putting it off. I'd already done mine. One day I came home and said, honey, I did your pre-planning. He said, thank you. He just didn't want to make that decision. Now I have handouts out here, and Gail or somebody, if anyone wants to hand these out, this is great. But when someone dies, there's 100+ things that have to be done or questions that have to be answered. As these get handed out, these may not all apply to you, but some of them will. The point is that there's a lot to do. And the more you do ahead of time, the easier you make it for your family. Most people are overwhelmed and unprepared when they come to French the day after a loved one passes. By pre-planning, you're going to do about 80% of this in advance. This is the final wishes organizer. And this is something that we give to people whenever we meet with them. And the information that we collect for the final wishes organizer is, first of all, we collect your vital statistic information. That is the information that a funeral director needs to get death certificates at the time of death. These are not hard questions, but it's much easier for you to answer these questions now than to leave this for your children or your spouse or someone else. We collect accounts and beneficiaries. There's thousands of dollars in insurance that is unclaimed. And we always put that in our memorial guide so that your family knows that you have insurance policies with whomever. We include emergency contacts. If you're military, we ask you for your DD-214, which is your military discharge papers. And that was the one that when my dad died, we had to go find. We didn't know what it was. He never told us about that. And then we find out what exactly is it that you want. Do you want burial? Do you want cremation? Do you want a service? Are we shipping your body to another state? I mean, do you want flowers? How many death certificates do you want? All of those things we ask in advance so that your family's not going to have to deal with it later. And then any special instructions that you want. I met with a lady last week. She wants to have a traditional funeral, but she doesn't want the casket open except to her immediate family. And we put all that on paper. Whatever you want is put on paper. It just makes it a whole lot easier on your family at that time. And what's your most important reason? Why is it that you would consider pre-plan? How many of you have pre-planned? Good. I know you have. Very good. I'm glad to see that some people have pre-planned. And now we're going to talk about the main reasons people pre-plan. All the urgent tasks and decisions that would burden loved ones later are handled now. You're the one that's in control. You're making all your own decisions. I met with a lady a few years ago who was Catholic and her children were not. She said, Karla, unless I do this myself, I am not going to get what I want. And so she took care of it. She paid for everything in advance. And that was what was important to her. It removes any doubt about funeral or final disposition choices. You want to be buried. You want to be cremated. Your kid, you may have talked to them about it, but I know my mom had told me one thing and my sister something else. Had we not pre-planned, we wouldn't have known for sure. Do you know what I'm saying? At that time, that's what mom wanted, but she changed her mind several times. It allows loved ones to have a positive grieving experience. It just makes it easy for them. And I don't know about you, but as I age, I want peace of mind in my life. And pre-planning really did give me peace of mind. I had just gone through a liver transplant. My husband had had a liver transplant. At that time, it's been 12.5 years. We're very blessed. But at the time, it just seemed like the right thing to do because we didn't know what his future was going to be. And it ensures that funeral costs have been addressed because most people prepay. So we're not leaving a big financial burden for our children. This is what we call the acute loss period. And what the acute loss period is something we all go through when we lose a loved one. You'll see right in the center, it says begin healing. Most people think that what we do at French is for the deceased. We're very good at taking care of the deceased. But really 90% of what we do after someone passes is help take care of the family and get them through the death of their loved one. And part of the two beginning phases of that are hearing and sharing. Now, ideally, when we pass away, we want our loved ones with us, our spouse, our children, or maybe our grandchildren. We just don't know when or where we're going to pass away. So that doesn't always happen. But what we do know will happen is that whoever we're close to and whoever's with us will start sharing the news and calling the family and letting them know. And most people, when you call them, will immediately say, when is there going to be a service? People want to be present to help and support their loved ones at that difficult time of a death. My parents have both been gone since 2005, but you know, I still attend funerals for their friends. We were born and raised here, so we know a lot of people. When I go to those funerals, they don't even know who I am. The family doesn't. But you know I'm there, and I know I'm representing my family. And that would make my parents happy. And of course, gathering is a really important thing to do because it helps give people that support of their loved ones and the community. And then the next one. And then, of course, through the years, we found that 70% of the people who will come to your funeral may not even know you, but they're friends of your spouse, they're friends of your children, they're friends of your grandchildren, and they're there to support and connect with them. At a funeral, we always reflect on the deceased and the life they lived. That's what eulogies are all about. We reflect on the family also and how their lives have changed. And I don't know about you, but every time I go to a funeral, I kind of reflect on my own life. I was born and raised here in Albuquerque. In the last 18 months, I've lost 8 classmates. So I did go to 3 high schools though. Okay. And then, of course, we want to celebrate your life. And when that is all put together, it just makes for a better experience for your loved ones. And what this is a study done by Time Magazine in 1970. And what it shows is the rising cost of funerals. Now, this is not specifically to Albuquerque, but it was a national survey. But what it does show is that funeral costs double about every 10, 12 years or so. And when you pre-plan, you get the goods and services locked in and guaranteed. And that's with any funeral. The benefits to a funeral policy: it locks in the cost, it protects your funds, it's transferable, and you can have manageable payments. Locks in the cost. The funeral home guarantees the services and merchandise will not increase over time, helping fight against inflation. So when you pre-plan, you get the goods and services locked in and guaranteed. That means those prices will never change. At French, we frequently do what we call policy reviews. I've had reviews with people that pre-planned in 1995, and they come in and they want us to go over it with them. I always recommend people go over it with the funeral home at least every 5 to 10 years. But sometimes they don't do that. They go, I got this policy a long time ago. I didn't remember what I have. And so we reviewed with them. But as I go through that, I look at it and go, wow, they really got a good deal. Because the prices are locked in way in. And by now it's double, triple, or so. Protected funds. Peace of mind knowing that by choosing to pre-fund your pre-arrangements, your investment is protected. I'm jumping ahead to another slide right now, but keep it at that slide. In the state of New Mexico, when you pre-plan, all funeral homes by law are required to work with an insurance company. They have to hold your funds until you pass away, okay? And it's a good law because it protects your funds. If something happened, for instance, to French, which it won't with French, we've been around 117 years, but those of you that are from Albuquerque or have lived here a long time have seen funeral homes come and go. So your funds are protected. So if something did happen to the funeral home that you're with, you still have an insurance policy that takes somewhere else. This is the one that you were asking about. If you happen to move away, you can transfer the funeral policy to another funeral home. It is never a lost investment. I'm going to give you an example of something that I see frequently. Mom and dad pre-plan, and I'm very specific. I'm specifically thinking of 3 different people. Mom and dad pre-planned. Dad died. In most cases, he goes to Santa Fe to the National Cemetery. One time they went to Sunset Memorial Park. Out of these 3 examples, Mom is no longer able to take care of herself. So Mom has to go to Kansas or California or somewhere else to live. Because your funds are held by an insurance company, that can be transferred to another funeral home. Now, in most cases, all we're doing is transferring the dollar amount. And in most cases, let's say it was $8,000, the funeral home would accept the dollar amount and then just charge you the difference based on their current day costs. Now, if you come back to New Mexico, your prices are locked in and guaranteed at that funeral home. Did that answer your question? Okay. And by paying for your funeral home over specific periods of time, it can be affordable for all families, meaning that all the funeral homes offer payment plans. Out of area protection, this is something that French has, and I believe most of funeral homes have something that is equivalent. And for us, what this means is if you're 75 miles or outside of our service area and you die, you can be brought back here to fulfill the arrangements you made in French. So when you go on that trip to Hawaii or you go to on that trip to Denver, if you die in the United States and have to be brought back here, it can easily cost $4,000 to $5,000. Without a area protection, you're brought back for the cost that you paid for. It's a wonderful program. I have this. And I always look at this like I do my car insurance. I wouldn't leave home without my car insurance, but you know what? I really hope I never have to use it. And that's kind of what this is. It's a lifetime membership. It has a relocation benefit. So that means if you move, that moves with you. You carry a membership card. You have worldwide coverage. Have any of you known someone that died overseas? What did it cost, to get them back?
They died in a hotel room in China. It was thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands.
It can be easily over $10,000, easily. But if you have one of these programs, you can be brought back for the $400 or $500 that you paid for. And there's no age limit, health questions or deductibles. So if you go to a funeral home, ask about this product. These are commonly asked questions. What if I already have insurance? You've seen on TV, what do they call it? Burial insurance. Yeah, we've all seen that, $8.99, $12.55, something like that. Well, all that is a life insurance policy, okay? You're not going to get your prices locked in and guaranteed. And this is what we were talking about a little while ago, is that when you purchase a pre-planned policy from a funeral home in New Mexico, the funeral home must use an insurance underwriter to protect your funds in case something happens to the funeral home. What if you already have insurance? Okay, good, she's bringing them all up. If you plan on using insurance for your funeral home, you will pay current day costs. When you pre-plan, you have the option to get those prices locked in and guaranteed at today's prices. If you're using burial insurance, you're going to pay whatever the costs are at that time. The funeral home typically uses a third party to claim funds, and they charge a percentage. So when someone dies and they come to French and they want to use an insurance policy at the time of passing, we work with a third party, as do most funeral homes. And that third party pays us because we have to get paid right away. Okay? That third party will charge anywhere from 3.5% and up to take that insurance policy and make a claim on your behalf. To claim insurance, you need to have a death certificate, which typically takes 2 to 4 weeks to receive, and your family has to pay out of pocket at the time of death. So you need a death certificate anytime you're making a claim on an insurance company, and it can take 2 to 4 weeks easily. During COVID, it was taking a really long time. People were calling us all the time, where's my death certificates? Well, there was nothing we could do about that. The funeral director is the one who orders them, but it's up to the state to get them for us. Why funeral home pre-plan versus other insurance? We actually just talked about this, but here's some more on it. Medicaid spend down and irrevocability. Every week we have people call us about mom or dad or uncle or aunt or someone who needs to go on what is called a Medicaid spend down. And what that is they're trying to get Medicaid to help keep that loved one, usually in a nursing home. Okay, you're trying to qualify them. I actually had personal experience with this with both my mom and my sister. My sister, she died a year ago this month, and about the last year of her life, we had to put her on Medicaid. My sister was a 2 master's degree nurse. a very intelligent young lady. She got Parkinson's. She spent every penny she had saved in her savings and 401k on healthcare. My husband and I could no longer take care of her. We were talking about that earlier with May. I had to make the tough decision to put her in a nursing home. She didn't have any money left. So we were trying to get assistance from Medicaid. And in order to qualify her, first of all, they had us provide bank statements to see how she spent her money. They found an insurance policy on her bank statement. They told us we had to cash that in because that's considered an asset. You can't have assets over $2,000 a month to qualify for Medicaid. So I immediately cashed in that life insurance policy. The same thing happened with my mom around the year 2000 when we were trying to qualify her for Medicaid. So we did a spend down and we were able to qualify her. If you do a pre-plan, which we get calls every week to do pre-plans for spend downs, you have to deem it as irrevocable. That just means that those funds can only be used at the time of death. It doesn't have a cash value, okay? Burial expenses is just another word for a life insurance policy. We already talked about that. What if I move? Well, we already talked about it being transferable. You own the policy and the funeral home performs the services and allows you to transfer to another funeral home. We have people who move to New Mexico and we are accepting transfers from another funeral home. And as I said before, what we do is we take the amount of that policy and we apply it to our current day costs. And then the family pays the difference. Is cremation more cost effective than burial? It can be, depending on what you choose for your plan. We customize each plan for every family. When you meet with a consultant like myself, we ask you a lot of questions about what you want, starting with do you want burial or cremation? Then we find out specifically what services you might want, flowers, number of death certificates. Do you want a reception? Do you want the reception at French? Do you want to pay for food? We ask a lot of questions. I've written policies for people who want cremation that are $15,000. I've also written some that are much, much lower than that. But it really depends on what you want. And that's why you want to meet with a consultant who can give you a good estimate based on what it is that you want. Who can get a pre-planned policy? Anyone at any age, no matter their health condition. I've written policies. I wrote a policy when I first started with French 10 years ago for an 18-year-old. She was having a surgery that required that she use this money from a trust in case she died during surgery. It was a very delicate surgery. The good news is she lived. And so when she turns 85, she's going to have a policy from 2014. But we had a really cute little lady who walked into French one day. She was 103 years old. She goes, honey, I think it's time for me to pre-plan. And we said, honey, we think you're right. We had a gentleman who pre-planned for him, his wife, his daughter, and 3 grandchildren. The grandchildren were at about 8, 10, and 12 years old. Can you imagine how much money they're going to save when they die at 85? So we can pre-plan for anyone. Can I donate my body to science? How many of you want to do that? Okay, we first of all recommend that well, if you're talking about like donating to UNM, an anatomical donation, that you contact them and pre-qualify. But even if you pre-qualify and they accept you, that doesn't mean they will accept you at the time of passing, depending on what conditions you're in, what medical conditions you have, or where you die. So,
or even if they have room at the morgue.
Exactly, exactly. During COVID, they shut down. We had people that had told us they were donating, who were dying, and their families are coming to us. They will be the first to tell you, have a plan B. So let's say you did have a plan B and you pre-planned with us, and at the time of passing, they accepted you. Your family can make a claim on the policy and get reimbursed for what you paid. Can my family scatter my ashes? Yes and no. It's not really legal to scatter on public property, but like if you're going to a forest or the mountains, you can get a permit. if you do it the legal way. All I know is when we give the cremated remains back to a family, we say, I know nothing. I'm not, you know? But we do ask you to be respectful of your loved one. You know, you go scatter them under that tree, and in 15 years, that's now a parking lot for a Walmart. You know, you want to treat your loved one with dignity and respect. And like at Sunset Memorial Park, they have a beautiful scattering garden there. And when the roses are blooming, it's just gorgeous there. When my sister died, I didn't really know what to do because she told me, I don't care what you do. Well, I care. So we scattered her there in the rose scattering garden, and we had her name put up on a wall, as well as our parents' names and my name and my husband. I wanted us all to be together for eternity. But there are options that are not very expensive, and that's one of them. But we do ask you to treat your loved one with dignity and respect. What are your veteran benefits, and does my spouse qualify? Every funeral home gives some kind of veterans benefits. When we meet with veterans, the first thing they want to do is, what is the government going to do for me? Well, basically what they do is they provide a plot in Santa Fe or at a national cemetery or a veteran cemetery. That can be a state cemetery. But for our veterans, we give discounts, and in some cases we'll give that a really nice discount to the spouse also, but it depends on what your situation is and what you're asking for. We all know death will occur at some time, we just don't know when. Our nation was impacted when COVID hit. We learned how important preparation is. One day your family will have their world shaken up when you pass away. So we recommend, and it is most important, that you are prepared. I had a presentation like this a couple months ago, and I had this gentleman who was kind of crotchety. I mean, I hate to say that, but he was kind of crotchety. He kind of fought everything that I said. And at the end, he said, "You're selling fear." And I said, "No, sir, you're military. I'm selling preparedness." And that's what this is all about. Being prepared and not leaving this for your loved ones. Okay, this is a little video. And I'm not sure that it will work, the sound. So what this is all about is, you know, we prepare for weddings, we prepare for parties. We just think it's a good idea if you prepare for your own funeral. When I first started this job, I used to tell my friends that I was an event coordinator.
So you're a life event.
A live event. I like that better. I wasn't that smart to come up with that one. You know, and while this is going on, we also remind people that it's really important to have a will and a power of attorney, your DNR, all that in place. And there's a wonderful organization in Albuquerque called New Mexico Senior Law Offices. They're absolutely wonderful. And they do it at a reduced cost and sometimes for free. I learned when my sister was sick how important that power of attorney was. Also, if you are being cremated, and the senior law offices will do this also, you want to have an authorization for cremation signed in advance and or put into your will that you want cremation. New Mexico has very strict laws on cremation and who can sign that authorization. I'm sorry you can't hear the video, but I think you're getting the idea here. We'll have a sunshiny day for your family and tree plan. I forgot about this little segment. Because someone else is controlling the slides, as you can see.
Oh,
there you go.
Okay.
And just thank you for being here. I hope this was useful information. Does anyone have any questions?
We did get a question online.
Uh-huh.
Julie asked, we had family plots paid a long time ago in another state. I don't know if you can answer this question. No one in the family wants them. The cemetery said we can't resell them or give them away, so will they just remain empty forever?
Well, I don't work on the cemetery site, so
Yeah.
I really cannot answer that.
So I was in a similar situation when I moved out of Kansas City, so I called the funeral home and talked to them. I had approved to them that I legally inherited them, but then I signed a quitclaim deed and transferred ownership to a hospice where I used to volunteer, because they had so many people who come and die and family couldn't afford anything, so I agreed to find more plots to the hospice, and then as they use those plots, then they do the same thing. They write a quitclaim deed to the family, and then the family gets to bury a plot. So that's, and again, I'm sure it's state laws that bury alive, so this is in Missouri, but I was able to do that. So there's some of that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to do. I know that at Sunset Memorial Park, which is our cemetery, which is part of the French family, that we do allow people to sell them. Or they can give the people at the cemetery the opportunity to sell them, but I've also seen ads in newspapers. So here in New Mexico, they can be sold. I don't know about other states,
Yeah.
just like what you said. Well, what a wonderful idea.
I like that
wonderful thing
idea.
to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I used to work at this hospice, and when someone would die and the family could afford nothing, the coordinators at the hospital would be calling churches, all sorts of benefactors, to try to round up the funds to have a funeral and a burial for this person.
Yeah.
So that's when it struck me, it's like, I've got these 4 cemetery plots that nobody in my family's ever gonna use. They're gonna sit there in perpetuity. So it was worth a few phone calls to get that worked out.
That's great.
Fill out the papers.
Yes.
I was just trying to get clarification. So if I, pre-planning, whatever, you all, then you move to New York City, where you're saying that can be transferred, but basically New York City funeral home is gonna take that policy and apply it to the current costs.
Correct.
So it's probably, why would it be beneficial if you don't know where you're gonna die,
Well, because you don't know when you're gonna die.
right?
You could die here. Most people do this for their children. We hear that when I was asking, why are you here? I rarely hear anything other than, I want to do this for my kids, I want to take the burden off them. A lot of times they don't know how long they'll be here. But they know if they die now, it's going to be covered. Now, keep in mind, if you have, this has happened many times, is that you have to move somewhere to be with your children because they're going to have to take care of you as you age. But you lived here your whole life. Here's where a lot of your family and friends are still here. If you have out of area protection, you can be brought back here and still have your services where your prices are locked in and guaranteed. And here's where the people are that you grew up with or spend most of your life with. So a lot of people choose that out of area protection to be brought back. I'm thinking specifically of a lady who, when she was moving to Oregon, she knew she was going to eventually move. She called me, she goes, Karla, I'm going to probably end up with my daughter. My health is starting to deteriorate in Oregon. Let me get that out of area protection from you. And when she died, her son called me and said, Mom died in Oregon with my sister. We brought her back here. And he was so glad that they had purchased the out of area protection. Not everybody uses it, but at least you have the peace of mind of knowing that you can be brought back. And if not, you can transfer. The point is your funds are never lost, whether you stay or move somewhere.
In fact, I had pre-planned for my parents 10 years earlier. My dad died last summer. And the funeral home actually showed me that we had saved $4,000 by pre-planning.
Yeah.
If we had paid today's rates, they had gone up that much.
Yeah. They're not going down. I'll tell you that. I've been there 10 years.
Yeah.
At the beginning of January, every year, our industry has a price adjustment. So And you know, more than that, you know, and I don't very often hear people saying they're doing it because my prices are locked in. I always hear, I'm doing it for my kids, I'm doing it for my spouse, I'm doing it for my grandchildren. That's the main reason people pre-plan.
Or
Well,
you're childless and nobody will take care of it for you.
and that's true too. I had one guy, 35 years old, come in and pre-plan. And I said, Mike, you're kind of young. And I was more curious than anything. And I said, why are you doing this? He said something like, and this was when I first started, this was about 8 years ago. He said, I'm tired of having bake sales and car washes to pay for my friends' funerals. Now it's GoFundMe,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know. Well, thank you very much.